So, very good. Welcome. Get ready. This is going to be a wonderful and mind-blowing class today. So let's get started. As I mentioned last week, I'm going to not mute people so you can ask questions and make comments as we go. Just keep them on task. We'll go through the presentation. We'll have a short meditation at the end, and then we'll have a little bit of schmooze for people that want to stay for additional questions or comments, however you want to work it. We're going to review some of the work we went over last week, and we're going to do a deep dive on it. And I have additional resources for that. So let me share the screen. Okay. So let me see this here. Okay, so if anybody can't see this, say something. Otherwise, I'm going to go forward. Okay, two modes of thinking, Rabbi Kaplan. Let's get into that. What is that? In Jewish meditation, Rabbi Kaplan is telling us that there are two modes of thinking. What are they and why is he saying it? This is what he says. Meditation, which is thought directed by will, can bring many benefits. Most people learn how to think as very young children, and throughout their adult lives, they do not think any differently than they did as children. That is to say, most people use their minds in a manner not essentially different from the way they did when they were 6 years old. Through meditation, one can control the thought process and learn to think in new ways, thus gaining a richer mind experience. It is significant that in Kabbalah, one's normal mode of thinking is referred to as the mentality of childhood, or mochin de katnut. More advanced modes of thought and states of consciousness, on the other hand, are referred to as the mentality of adulthood, mochin de gadlut. One learns these methods of adult thought through meditation, through which one develops the ability to transcend the ways of thinking one learned as a child. So, major points here. He has this worldview of how people think, and he's breaking it down into two simple categories, childlike thinking and adult-like thinking. He's making the point that through meditation, we can learn how to control the thought process and, in essence, decide which mode of thinking we want to use. He mentions that the adult way of thinking is learned also through meditation. So, the meditation is supposed to enable you to transcend the mode of thinking you learned as a child. So he's actually talking about two different types of meditation. One which acts like a channel changer, one where you could switch from childhood thinking to adult thinking, and the other mode of meditation allows you to develop adult thinking. So once again, showing his sophisticated understanding of meditation, pointing out that there's different types. He doesn't tell you here what those forms of meditation are, but he refers to them. We might have some sources to explain a little bit what they are. Okay. Now, let's learn a little bit more about what he says. He has another book, Meditation and Kabbalah, right here, and he talks a little bit about this. This is what he says. Okay. Although the earlier meditative Kabbalists occasionally discuss their experiences, they provide very little theory regarding states of consciousness. One of the first to speak specifically of states of consciousness appears to be the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism. The two states of consciousness that he discusses, the Baal Shem Tov, are Mochin de Gadlut and Mochin de Katnut, or more commonly, simply Gadlut and Katnut, the adult way of thinking and the childlike way of thinking. Okay. These terms are somewhat difficult to translate. The word Mochin literally means brains. And in the Ari's terminology, Kabbalist, refers to mentalities. In the context used by the Baal Shem Tov, however, the term Mochin actually should be translated states of consciousness. Whether it's brains or whether it's states of consciousness, okay. We'll take it at face value, we're talking about childlike thinking versus adult thinking. Gadlut means maturity or greatness, while Katnut means immaturity or smallness. Actually, then, the best way to translate Mochin de Gadlut would be expanded consciousness, while Mochin de Katnut would be constricted consciousness. Within the general theory of meditation, it is known that an important goal of this practice is to bring a person to a state of expanded consciousness. Okay, so that tells us a little something about the form of meditation that could be used to develop an adult way of thinking, meaning that the meditation format that we use should be able to expand our consciousness, broad thinking, maybe more complex thinking. Okay. Okay. He says, when a person is in a state of expanded consciousness, he is enlightened in all walks of life. He has realized the vanity of the mundane world and the greatness of the spiritual. Everything that he does is with a different awareness, whether it is eating and drinking, worship, or study. Okay, and the Baal Shem Tov talks a lot about this. So for our purposes, since this is not a Kabbalah class, it's not a class about mysticism, for our purposes, we're going to say that the expanded way, the expanded consciousness, the adult way of thinking gives us a richer appreciation of life. Okay, so that should tell us something about the type of meditation that's used. Okay. Expanded and constricted consciousness can be explained in the following manner. When a person learns something but does not understand it in depth, this is a state of constricted consciousness. Just do it because I told you. That's what we tell the kids. Since his mental picture is not complete. But when he grasps something with enthusiasm and full understanding, then he is on the level of expanded consciousness, bound to the highest levels. Similarly, there are states of expanded and constricted consciousness in prayer and all other observance. So he's basically telling us that you could have a constricted or narrow or just surfacey way of looking at things, or an expanded and complex way of looking things in everything. Okay. When a person is in a state of expanded consciousness, he has great joy in the study of Torah and worship of God. And it goes to reason then that he has great joy in doing everything he does. When a person is in a state of constricted consciousness, he cannot worship with reverence and love, but must force himself to do so without joy. This state is the mystery of constricted consciousness. Gut yourself through it. Just go through the motions. So these are some examples of, I think, what he's saying, that when you haven't developed a way of thinking that's more sophisticated, more complex, that gives you more options, you just walk through life. And how many people do that? A lot. Okay. Okay. And we achieve Gadlut through meditation, as he says. Okay. Let's learn a little bit more about this. Okay. Now, meditation on the Bible. This was his first book about Jewish meditation. And he talks about, as we'll find out, these unique forms of meditation, which actually help us form a frame of mind. Okay, it is so fascinating. And what's very fascinating about it is that he bases it on examples from the Torah. Okay, so let's go here, pages 101 and 102. This is what he says. The very first reference to meditation in the Bible occurs immediately after Rebekah was brought back to marry Isaac, just before their first meeting. The scripture states, Isaac came from the way of Be'er Lachai Roi, and Isaac went out to meditate. The Hebrew word is suach, in the field toward evening. Okay, that's from Breshit. The word suach, which is sen vav chet, occurs only this one time in the Bible. It is very closely related, however, to the word siach, sin yud chet, and the derivative sicha, sin yud chet he, which are also translated as referring to meditation. The Talmud recognizes this relationship, stating that suach has the connotation of some type of prayer or worship. Commentating on this verse, siach is nothing other than prayer. Okay. One of the later commentaries from the Malbim, who's from the 1800s, clearly states that Isaac was engaged in a classical form of meditation. Be'er Lachai Roi was the place where the angel had appeared to Hagar after she and Ishmael had been driven away by Sarah. And since an angel had appeared there, this place had become a shrine. Malbim writes, this was a holy place at the time because an angel had been seen there. And Isaac went there each afternoon to meditate, hit boded, which we're going to learn about, but that's being by yourself, both physically and mentally. It is significant to note that Malbim uses the term hit boded, which, as we have seen, refers to the inner isolation of meditation. So Isaac went to a place that was somehow more spiritually enhanced because an angel had appeared in that place prior, dealing with Hagar, and B, because he did a spiritual something, that was his makom, that was a special place where he went to meditate. So his activity also enriched the spirituality. He went there to meditate. We'll find out how. The Talmudic teaching that siach meditation indicates some kind of worship or prayer is supported by a number of verses. We thus find expressions such as in Tehillim and Psalms, "O God, hear my voice when I meditate," siach. And even more obviously, a poor man's prayer when he enshrouds himself before God, he pours forth his meditation, siach. That's also from Psalms. Here it clearly refers to communion with God, and from the first verse, it can be verbal as well. Thus, while meditation is primarily a mental activity, the type of meditation implied by the word siach can also be verbal. So he's looking at the way Hebrew is used, and he's understanding that this word that implies a meditation can imply a silent activity or a spoken activity. Let's go here for a second. Okay, he's paving the way for our understanding of what this meditation is about. There's a certain verbalization quality to it. In many other places in the Bible, the word siach clearly refers to actual speech. In later Hebrew, this is certainly the case. Sicha being a common word for idle chatter or speech not having anything to do with the task at hand. So again, he's building a case to say that meditation, the type of meditation Isaac was doing, actually used words. It was verbalized. Okay. There are some places where this word does refer to nonverbal meditation. Again, referring to Psalms, I recall my melody at night. I meditate siach with my heart, within my heart, and with my spirit. Okay. It's evident that siach is a process that can involve thought alone, where one communes with his heart, And it's also related to the Ruach spirit, the level of the soul involved in enlightenment, which is in a seeking mode. The concept of siach is seen as very closely related to seeking enlightenment and exploring one's spirit. Okay. Rabbi Abraham Ibn Ezra, another important commentator, takes this as a cue. In at least two places, he interprets the word siach to indicate conversation with one's own heart. One place is in his commentary on the verse in Psalms, upon your statutes I meditate, siach. Well, another is also from Psalms, on the words of your wonders I will meditate, siach again. According to Ibn Ezra, the connotation of siach meditation can be to speak to oneself about God's teaching and deeds. So Rabbi Kaplan is leading us to the Ibn Ezra, who's saying that this form of meditation involves verbalization, and verbalization to yourself. You're talking to yourself. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Okay. And then finally, we thus see that the root siach refers to a form of meditation that can be either verbal or nonverbal. In some places, at least, the Bible associates it with ruach, spirit, and prophecy. Besides this, it is also a word used for casual conversation as well as for conversation that is not to the point. From the context, it would seem that siach refers to inner, directed, unstructured meditation, whether verbal or nonverbal, around one central point. One fixes his mind on one central subject and then allows his thoughts to caress it, looking at it from all sides. This is certainly the context of such verses as, I will meditate siach on your wonders, from Psalms, and I meditate siach on your decrees, also from Psalms. The general object of the meditation in these verses is God's wonders and teachings, and the mind and lips probe them from every angle. A lot here. So first of all, probing them from every angle means a more adult way of thinking. We already said that the childlike way of thinking is more constricted, more narrow, more simple, more surfacey. But the adult way of thinking allows you to more versatility. You can look at things at different angles. So here he's saying that the siach meditation, which dates all the way back to Isaac, is a way of developing the adult mentality. That's point number one. Point number two, he's saying that it could be done silently or in talking to yourself, and very importantly, in the meditation, using it as a focus on something, so that you're actually choosing to focus on this and not on that. Okay, focus, verbalization or non-verbalization, and looking at things at different angles, from different angles. And so obviously, so what are you going to be thinking about? Certainly he's saying God's wonders and teachings, okay, very good. But it goes to reason that if you develop these skills, you can employ them on other subjects. Okay, and that's what we're going to discuss. Okay. Okay, very good. Let's look at Stephen Siebold. Stephen Siebold. He is a mental toughness expert, world-renowned, has talked to all kinds of successful people in all walks of life. How do they get so good? Okay. He has this book, 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class. All right, so I'm going to use his teachings to try to give a specific example of what Rabbi Kaplan is talking about. Rabbi Kaplan is suggesting that we can use meditation to develop a certain mentality, to use that mentality to enrich our spirituality, to employ that mentality when we're thinking about certain things, and make a conscious decision to use that mentality as opposed to a childlike mentality to really enhance our appreciation of what we're doing. Okay, so that's in general terms what he's talking about. I have not found any mechanics yet in his teachings about how exactly you do that, But my thinking is that some of the teachings like him can give us some insights. Okay. His first short essay is called Champions Know the Power of Programming. So he calls people that are highly successful, and not just monetarily or in power, but in terms of quality of life. He calls them champions and or the world class. Okay, this is what he says. He quotes a Dr. Shad Helmstetter, who is a world expert on what's called self-talk. And this quote says, "The programming that you accept from others and the conscious and unconscious directives, pictures, feelings, and thoughts that you transmit to yourself will find a place in your own internal control center. Together, those thoughts and images will continue to create in advance or influence on the spot every response, attitude, and action that will be a part of you in your future." He's talking about the programming you received as a child. So this is what Steven Siebold says. "The majority of champions I've worked with and coached during the years confess the bulk of the mental programming they received during their childhood was substandard. Many are quick to add that the people who programmed them, parents, teachers, coaches, ministers, other religious leaders, and adults of influence, were doing the best they could based on their level of awareness at the time. It's easy to criticize in hindsight, yet champions don't feel the need to do this. They want to take control of their own programming process, and install the habits, philosophies, traits, and beliefs that empower rather than limit them. Middle-class performers scoff at things like reprogramming and tend to hold on to what they were taught, no matter how poor their teacher's thinking. The pros use two primary methods of reprogramming. First and foremost, they alter the language they use when they talk to themselves and others. They adjust their language from the middle class to the world class level. They create self-talk scripts and repeat them daily until the changes take place. The second thing they do is use the power of mental pictures or visualization training to adjust how they experience events. The combination of these two change processes has a powerful effect on the mindset of the performer. Sadly, the concepts are so simple that most people miss them. Meanwhile, the great ones keep getting stronger and stronger by developing world-class thoughts, feelings, and attitudes through the reprogramming process. It seems to me that this is a real classic example of what it takes to develop the Mochin Gadlut, the adult mindset, and overcoming the mindset you just put together as a kid. And it takes work. And interestingly, the two techniques he's talking about are self-talk and visualization. Self-talk, verbalization, the same kind of thing that Rabbi Kaplan was talking about. Using specific words, verbalizing your thoughts to yourself. That's what these guys are calling self-talk. And choosing the words deliberately so that you can take a more positive, empowering, sophisticated way of looking at things. Programming yourself. Okay. Next, champions know their brain's primary purpose. Okay. The great ones know that the human brain's primary purpose is the preservation of the mind and body. When an event occurs, the brain asks three questions. What is it? What does it mean? What do I do? The answers determine how the performer responds to any given situation. The secret that champions have discovered is that what an event means is all based on the subjective perception of the performer and is therefore subject to change. If you change the perception of the event, you automatically change the brain's response to it. An example would be a salesperson facing rejection day in and day out. The middle-class thinker perceives this rejection to mean pain and suffering. The world-class perceives it as completely necessary to justify being paid a large salary and healthy commission. If the champion had the opportunity to remove rejection from the equation, she would refuse to do it, knowing that the job would no longer be worth as much in the marketplace. Instead, she alters her perceptions to empower her as a professional performer. The same scenario could apply to anyone in the middle of a divorce. The average thinker perceives a divorce as a personal failure. The world-class thinker sees it as a learning experience that will make him tougher and wiser. Which performer is right? Both, because perception to an emotional creature is reality. It sometimes appears that the masses allow themselves to suffer for the sake of suffering, when all they have to do is make a subtle shift in their perception and reprogram what any given event means to them. While both experiencing the same event, the amateurs are suffering while the pros are dancing in the streets. The only difference lies in the way they manage and manipulate their emotions. Another example, Viktor Frankl, Search for Meaning, Man's Search for Meaning. If you don't know Viktor Frankl, he was a psychiatrist in Vienna who was grabbed by the Nazis, and he was in concentration camps for 4 years. Wrote an outstanding book about Man's Search for Meaning, because as a psychiatrist, he was able to look at the experiences, his own experience and the experiences of those other captives around him, and get into their heads. And his basic conclusion was that the internal perception made all the difference. His remark is like, there were some guys in these concentration camps who they woke up that day expecting to die and the world is ending. And there was other guys who were planning what business they're going to get into when they get liberated. So those are prime examples of people who had adopted looking at the same event, being captured by the Nazis and held captive in concentration camps, but had very different reactions to them because of the way they were looking at it. Okay, a very clear example of constricted thinking versus expansive thinking. Okay, and finally, his next essay is The World-Class Reframes Painful Past Experiences. Quoting one of his mentors, a guy named Larry Wilson, who says, "It's never too late to have a wonderful childhood." This is what Stephen Siebold says. Champions believe the only thing relevant about their past is how it affects their present and future. The middle-class consciousness bases many beliefs on the events of the past, yet the world class knows the past does not equal the future. Champions are masters at placing new empowering meanings on the struggles of the past. Average people invest a lot of time living in the past and wishing things were different. The great ones know that without the trouble and turbulence they experienced in the past, they would not be where they are today. This attitude creates mental harmony and fosters good feelings about an otherwise troublesome set of memories. Good memories of the past are not an issue for anyone. It's the tough times that reveal the level of the performer. The great ones share the philosophy that everything happens for a reason. This allows them to reframe events they originally perceived as negative. This is another example of how champions use the concept of truth versus fact. Knowing they cannot change the facts of the past, champions instead alter their interpretation of the facts. This mental tool enables them to transform the pain of the past into a positive catalyst for growth in the future. Okay, this seems to be a really good insight into what you have to do to transform, to transcend the childlike mentality to the adult mentality. You get to rewrite your life, rewrite your childhood from the point of view of now and saying, oh, that wasn't so bad. You know, maybe that bully got to me, but I got to him in turn. You know, whatever the stuff you're holding on to in the past, growing up, you reframe that and you can say, wasn't so bad, or actually it was pretty good. I have something I can use to move forward. So this essay seems to me to be a really good way of developing the adult mindset that Rabbi Kaplan is talking about. Okay. So these essays from this expert give us some of the how-tos and what-to-dos in developing the mindset that Rabbi Kaplan is talking about to enhance our spirituality. Okay. And since Rabbi Kaplan has stated several times that it's meditation that helps us develop this mentality, then I would say that he would say that what this guy is talking about these processes in these short essays are themselves meditation. Programming yourself is meditation. Reframing your past to empower you into the future is meditation. How else could we be developing that alternative mindset to enhance our spirituality? So I don't know if Rabbi Kaplan, I mean, it's not here. I would love to ask him, is this what you mean? And I'm going to bet a certain amount of money that he says yes, although he's not here. Okay. Okay, to wrap up, we're going to review what Commander Mark Devine says in The Way of the Seal. Right here. Okay. If you recall, we said last week, he says we have a sentinel at the gate. You set up a mental witness, a mental sentinel to witness what's going on inside your brain. Okay, we already have this sentinel. We already have this objector, this objective watcher of what we're doing. And we just have to pay him some mindfulness, pay attention to having him. You sit in an ideal spot, you breathe, you focus on your breath or whatever you're going to focus on. You do a little bit of meditation. You calm yourself so you can be aware of your thoughts. And then you exercise your will as to what you're going to think. The first step is detect. Your sentinel will detect any thoughts that slip into your mind. And you can see, is this a thought from my childlike mindset, or is this a thought from my adult mindset? You interdict. If your sentinel detects a negative or useless thought, interdict it with a simple command such as stop or no. When you tell yourself to stop thinking something, guess what? You'll stop for a moment. You realize you're having an immature reaction to a situation or a negative reaction. You put a pause on that. No, I don't want to think that. Then what you do is you redirect. Once you stop a negative thought, you have to redirect your mind to new empowering thoughts. When another driver cuts you off, triggering thoughts of revenge, your sentinel detects and then interdicts with stop. The redirect occurs with a short dialogue such as, too bad, that guy's having a bad day, but I'm not going to let him ruin mine. I'm focusing on the positive now. So you use the sentinel to pivot off of a childlike or negative response to a positive response, even talking yourself into it. You energize, solidify the new thought by getting your whole being to support it, entering a new physiological state that matches your mental shift. For example, conjure images of yourself looking strong, confident, and positive. You say you want to be positive, you got to be positive. Feel it, sit up straight, break a smile and laugh. Breathe deeply and feel the strong, confident, and positive energy course throughout your body. No one can spoil your good mood. So you got to act the role. You can say, I'm going to choose to be more mature now. You got to act mature. You communicate. This is an insurance policy. You must talk yourself into a new way to override any lurking negativity and prevent new destructive thoughts from creeping in. In SEAL training, I used the mantra, feeling good, looking good, or to be in Hollywood. This guy was a Navy SEAL, and you know the training they go to. He commanded Navy SEALs. He trained Navy SEALs. Okay, that's self-talk. He's using his time, his mental energy to fulfill out the role, convince himself he is who he should be. And then train. Your mind can be a powerful ally or a slothful fiend. Practice this direct technique daily, like you would exercise your body. And it will not only give you control in the moment, but also train your mind to function at an elite level permanently. Meditate daily. So this whole process is also the form of meditation that Rabbi Kaplan's referring to. Remember, we said we have two forms of meditation that he referred to. One is a form of meditation to develop a more expansive mindset. And the second form of meditation was to develop the skill to choose that mindset as opposed to the childlike mindset, which gets you into trouble and which restricts your experience in life and inhibits your spiritual appreciation of things. So again, I think that the Commander Divine is giving us details on how to do that form of meditation, to exercise that mental control that Rabbi Kaplan is talking about. Okay. Okay. We're going to stop recording now.